pregame commentary before the first night of the second debate. So you had 3 debates. They have 2 nights of debates. This is the second one. You're going to have 10 people on the stage the first night, then 10 people on the stage the second night. So for the first night coming up in just a few hours, July 30th, 2019, Elizabeth Warren, she's going to be in there. She's one of my top favorites. She's my number 4. Bernie Sanders, she's my number 1. Pete Buttigieg, he's my number 6. So those are the top 3 candidates tonight that I'll be paying attention to closely. Just hopefully, they don't, bugger it up. Don't bugger it up. Damn English. Don't fuck it up, okay? That's essentially for Elizabeth, Bernie, and Pete. They're well-known. Beto's, a little bit well-known. Hickenlooper, Amy Klobuchar, Tim Ryan, John Delaney, Marianne Williamson, Steve Bullock. So those are the 10. And Dana Bash, Don Lemon, Jake Tapper are going to be the moderators, so that's way better than Rachel Maddow shit show. So Jake Tapper and Don Lemon are going to be interesting. I like them. Dana Bash, I don't know who that is. Steve Bullock, I don't know who that is. So Steve Bullock is going to need to make a major splash in tonight's debate. Marianne Williamson, she's going to have she's going to have to show me that she's got some plans. She's progressive. She wants a spiritual awakening. I like a lot about Marianne Williamson, but she doesn't know what she's doing. She's not in favor of plans, so she's got these sweeping progressive, ideas, but how are you going to get there? How are you going to get to the promised land without a plan? You got to have a plan. Your plan articulates your ideas so I can know exactly where the hell you stand. If you just want to bullshit me, of course you're not going to have a plan. So John Delaney, terrible. Absolutely awful. One of the worst candidates ever in the history of candidates. Amy Klobuchar is terrible, so God, we're going to have to put up with Amy Klobuchar and John fucking Delaney. They're more Republican than Joe Biden is. Your apex pet, Amy Klobuchar, so Israel could do no wrong for Amy Klobuchar. She won't criticize Palestine the way that Bernie Sanders has led on this conversation, the socialist Jew. So, if the Jew is talking about how Israel needs to keep their hands off of Palestine, then you probably should, take note. He's got a unique perspective on the thing, and he's also, most of the Democrats love Israel, so there's only 4 candidates. There's only a couple candidates here that even, Elizabeth Warren has been championing Israel the whole time. Pete Buttigieg is endorsed by a former AIPAC president. Bernie Sanders, he's a proud Jew who wants to keep a Jewish Israel instead of a secular democratic nation with both Palestine and Israel combining into one country. So Bernie Sanders wants a 2-state solution so he could preserve the Jewish nation that is Israel. Israel, if it was secular, I don't think it would lose its Jewish character, but it wouldn't be a theocracy. So Bernie Sanders is calling for 2 theocracies in the Middle East, Palestine and Israel, and he's opposed to the blockade and the settlements and the targeted killings and the destruction of property. So he's probably the best out of all these candidates when it comes to the 2-state solution. Mike Gravel, who's not going to be in any of these debates, is the best on the 1-state solution. So all we got is these other assholes who don't really know what the hell is going on. So Beto O'Rourke, he's criticized Netanyahu a little bit. Pete Buttigieg, like I said, Amy Klobuchar is the biggest, AIPAC's darling. John Hickenlooper, he was the governor of Colorado when Colorado legalized marijuana, so he was a pioneer like Abraham Lincoln. He was chosen to lead his state. He ran against marijuana, so I'd love to know if he's even in favor of legalization of marijuana. Where is he on the war on drugs? What's his foreign policy? He's running on the thing that's having a socialist president is going to be the worst idea ever in the human history of humankind. No, FDR was socialistic, and he's one of the most popular presidents we've ever had, elected him 4 times. So Bernie Sanders is going to be one of the most popular presidents ever in all. He's one of the greatest. He's perfect. He's an absolute perfect fit for the presidency. He's been right every single decade for the past 70 years, including integration and wars and, Ronald Reagan's attack of Central America. Every decade. Pick a decade and pick all the major issues of that decade. Bernie Sanders was correct on his entire life. His entire fucking life. People say he's boring because he says the same shit. Yeah, well, we needed universal health care 50 years ago. We still need it today. So, okay, you're going to get mad because he's wonderfully consistent. So which is it? You don't like flip-floppers or you don't like consistency? Jesus. Then you have Pete Buttigieg. He's pretty progressive. I would like to hear some of what he has to say. They're the most popular, right? So the people that need to make a splash, Tim Ryan needs to do something. Hinkenlooper's got to do something. Delaney, Bullock, Steve Bullock, Marianne Williamson, Beto O'Rourke. They need to do something. I mean, they're probably popular in their own right, but they need to do something to really break away from the crowd. And, yeah, so that's essentially my short breakdown of the 10 Democrats who are running, or who are going to be on the debate stage tonight, especially 2.5 hours, 3 commercials, and they get a minute for their opening and their closing. So again, my top 6 favorites: number 1, Bernie Sanders; 2, Tulsi Gabbard, Cory Booker. We're going to hear from them tomorrow. Elizabeth Warren, she's in it tonight. Kamala Harris tomorrow. Pete Buttigieg. A couple comments about Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren is super progressive. So I like Tulsi, Cory, Elizabeth, Kamala, and Pete. They're all very progressive, but they're not Bernie Sanders. So they're progressive. I just want to make a nuanced argument because I like them. I like their overall progressiveness. But who comes out on top? Who's the number 1? Clearly Bernie Sanders. Elizabeth Warren, she voted for Donald Trump's military budget at least 2 times. Then you also had Madeleine Albright. So you have Elizabeth Warren saying that her foreign policy advisor is Madeleine Albright. And Madeleine Albright, she had said that the 500,000 Iraqi children that had died due to our sanctions was a cost she was prepared to pay. Oh, fantastic. 500,000, huh? So you're prepared to pay for the death of 500,000 kids of another country. Elizabeth Warren defends Israel's attacks on Palestine. She's been somewhat critical of Palestine here lately, but she's always been an Israel girl. And so Julian Assange, she says it's a bad actor. She's not good on foreign policy. When it comes to Julian Assange and Edward Snowden and Chelsea Manning, not only should we pardon all of them, but we should give them jobs in government because they're one of the few honest people that's out here. We need honest people in government. And so Elizabeth Warren is wrong when it comes to Julian Assange, but she's wrong when it comes to Madeleine Albright. She's wrong when it comes to Israel. She's wrong when it comes to Donald Trump's military budget. Elizabeth Warren is for 75% college forgiveness, so she's not going to do shit for me. Elizabeth Warren's plan doesn't do shit for me. She's against GMO labeling. She wants to impose restrictions on sex workers' bank accounts. She votes no on the estate tax. She votes no to expanding Social Security, no to taxing Wall Street transactions. She takes money from big business. She gave a standing ovation to Donald regarding their mutual hatred for socialism, voted to advance Ben Carson's nomination. Elizabeth Warren claimed to be Native American. She had a drop of Native American blood, but she used it as, affirmative action to get some preferential treatment. So she definitely, used and abused her Native American heritage. So the whole Pocahontas thing, Donald Trump's right about it. You might not like it. That's the litmus test, okay? Be outraged that Donald said some bullshit. He says bullshit all the time, but you need to analyze it and see if it's true. If it's true, like the shit he's saying about Baltimore, well, you need to let it go. You need to, point out that he's criticizing, heavily criticizing a predominantly black city, but you got to look at what he's saying. If he's saying shit that's true, then that's, that's your get-out-of-jail-free card. Say something true. So, with the whole Pocahontas thing, she did use her Native American, so-called heritage to advance her career when she's barely a tiny one drop of Native American, so they dug real deep and they found something. But to say that, her grandmother, great-grandmother, there's no Native American in Elizabeth Warren's, near ancestry, right? So her grandmother wasn't Cherokee, so it's very far removed. And if she would have seen the DNA test first, then later, I don't think she would have claimed to be Native American. She's got one drop in her, so she could claim she's got a drop. She probably voted for Ronald Reagan. She wouldn't say she's a Republican until 1996. So she probably voted for Reagan and Papa Bush and maybe Ross Perot or Bob Dole. She hasn't said shit about universal health care, universal basic income, or instant runoff voting. So I like Elizabeth Warren, but these are serious criticisms. When it comes to the kind of policies that she's going to pass, she's kind of all over the place. She's a capitalist, pro-only capitalism like Hinkenlooper. We've had a mixed system for 70 years, so these assholes aren't even acknowledging what America is right now. We got Social Security. Socialism is literally in Social Security, the name of the Social Security. So Social Security, right? Socially, we're going to give security to the old people and the disabled people. So Social Security, there's public schools, there's roads, there's so much infrastructure and so much, bridges and police and fire and post offices. There's so much government that's out here to just, sweepingly say, like, all government is bad. Socialism, that's the whole point. Republicans use socialism as any program that helps people. Oh, you're going to use a program to give them free health care? That's socialism. You're going to give out free laptops? Socialism. Anything that's good for the people, it's just socialism. So they're going to attack us anyways on that. So to run away from, first, the truth that we're a mixed capitalist socialist system. I'm a capitalist socialist, and I'm opposed to communism. So I am, I feel like I'm moderate when it actually comes to my views. Bernie Sanders is a Republican, is an Eisenhower Republican when it comes to his economic policies. His 90% marginal tax rate on the people making over $10 million, and then for the industries to make sure they reinvest in their own businesses, and then to employ new people to make sure that they're expanding their businesses and hiring new people and creating new jobs for the American people. That's Eisenhower. And that's the 90% tax rate. So it's not going to be 90% on everybody. It's going to be on the, 10 million plus people. And then the companies, they're going to have the 90% marginal. It's going to be on the, their companies, really. But the companies are being forced to be, good for America, create new jobs. The only thing that Eisenhower forced the corporations of America to do was to make sure they're responsible corporations, to reinvest into their own business, to expand and reinvest into their own business, and then to expand their operations and create new jobs. So that's Bernie Sanders. The Democrats are Republicans. Republicans are batshit crazy. So Bernie Sanders actually puts us right back on track, as a moderate. He's a moderating voice. He's a rock star. He's going to do a shit ton of stuff for the farmers. He's going to legalize marijuana in the war on drugs, and his college plan helps me. So he's going to have a health care plan that helps me, a college plan that helps me. He's going to have a child care plan that helps me. He's going to have a federal program, a federal jobs program. If an American wants a job, they get a job. So he's going to have a federal jobs program. He's opposed to universal basic income, which is disappointing. He hasn't said anything about instant runoff voting, which is also disappointing. So we're not going to get a free and fair election for the independents under a Bernie Sanders administration, and we're not going to get universal basic income. Everybody's not going to get a $12,000 a year check like Andrew Yang is proposing, and that Martin Luther King had supported, and Milton Friedman, a conservative economist. A conservative economist was in favor of the universal basic income. It gets rid of poverty. So collectively, I would say most of Bernie Sanders' programs, puts a large dent in poverty, and you probably eliminate it for the most part, but it doesn't attack it head-on like universal basic income or land reform would do. Pete Buttigieg wants to legalize marijuana. He's not opposed to the war on drugs. He was critical of his own police, but he didn't fire the police chief. He was good about racism. He says, he said there's a viral moment where he kind of shitted on some racist. He was like, well, racism isn't going to help. And then he pointed out that black folks are 4 more times likely, he said, to get jailed, but it was actually arrested for marijuana. But he says that that's a statistic for evidence of systemic racism. So, therefore, racism is definitely a part of it. Somebody asked, well, they're doing all the crime or some shit. And he goes, well, racism isn't going to help. So, Pete Buttigieg is a millennial. He's 37 years old. He's a mayor of a town. He's an Afghanistan veteran. He has a boyfriend. So I think that's actually pretty exciting on the American scene, right? Jared Polis was the first gay governor in America, so to see, the first lady being a man, or being, seeing the first man being a woman, that's a different picture, and that's exciting. So it's superficial, the identity politics, but, Kamala Harris is a black woman, Pete Buttigieg is a gay man, Bernie Sanders is a socialist Jew, and so these are brand new. They will make history if they become elected to the White House. Beto O'Rourke is like the vanilla Obama. He talks like an asshole. He's, only when he's compared to Ted Cruz is he a progressive. He's really bad. Klobuchar, terrible, uninspiring. She's AIPAC's #1 darling. I just don't I can't hear anything she says. She complained about, well, we actually been fighting for choice, but Jay Inslee wasn't saying he was fighting for choice. Jay Inslee was just saying that he's the only state or the only politician that passed universal health care that covered a woman's right to choose, that covers abortion. And he said he was the only person on the stage to do that. And so that's true. I mean, the United States hasn't done that, so these, senators and congressmen can't say they did what Jay Inslee did. Jay Inslee also looks like looks like a president. He's a street fighter. We need a progressive street fighter. And so I question, some of these the candidates that I like, the top 6, Tulsi, Corey, Elizabeth, Kamala, and Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg, he's a little short, and so I feel like, Donald might just hit him on that. That's, very superficial, but he doesn't look presidential to me. He's got a lot of smart, progressive ideas. Policy is the only thing that matters, but I guess I fear that the American people might not look up to Pete Buttigieg because, he's shorter than them. So that's, superficial. That, to me, doesn't matter. But to be the president, you're the face. You're not just a voice. You're the face for the entire country. And I want you to stand up and inspire me to, go above and beyond. So when it comes to his health care plan, he's got means tested. So he's not for universal health care. He's not for universal college. He wants universal health care through Obamacare with a public option, and he's for universal college for anybody making under $125,000. Any families making under $125,000 gets free college. I like that. That helps mostly poor, middle-class folks, and it, fucks over the rich. But I like the idea of having a universal policy because we're all Americans. If you're American, you get to go to college for free. And so Bernie Sanders is aiming for the moon. Or Bernie Sanders is aiming for the sun. He's aiming for the stars. And so if he just happens to land on Jupiter, that's pretty good, right? We never landed on Jupiter before, and maybe he could colonize the damn place. So whereas Pete Buttigieg is saying, well, my reasonableness says that really we should have some private insurance. So they're all doing that. So when it comes to a fighter, I want somebody, your rhetoric has to be soaring because, look, it took forever to get a wall. We didn't get Guantanamo Bay shut. And so for a president, just to get one thing accomplished, they have to talk about it like it's the greatest goddamn thing in the entire world. And so that's really why Andrew Yang's, campaign is so huge, because of his main universal basic income idea. And that's it. That's the only idea he's, presented forward that I, really like. He's, seems intelligent. He's not very exciting, but he's a tech nerd, so he's got some interesting perspectives about this and that. So when it comes to Bernie, Tulsi, Corey, Elizabeth, Kamala, and Pete, Kamala confronted Joe Biden, still maintained her femininity, so she's a strong fighter who also is lovable. Pete Buttigieg, he might be a fighter a little bit. He might be a little wily, right? He might be scrappy. Elizabeth Warren, I think she would lose. Elizabeth Warren is not strong enough to go up against a Donald Trump. He hit her with that Pocahontas, and she's got to apologize. The only way forward, the only way out of her for that Pocahontas thing is, she just keeps saying, he's saying racist comments, and it's so racist. She was the racist who was using Native American heritage that she didn't have in order to advance her career. So that is her being a racist. She was being racist. So Elizabeth Warren, with that Pocahontas thing, it's got to be, she's going to go against Trump, right? So she's very progressive. Policy-wise, she would be a great president. All these candidates would be great presidents, but they're not Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders has more progressive planks, and he can take it straight to Donald Trump tit for tat. Donald Trump says your mother's a hoe. Bernie Sanders will say, well, your mother and your grandmother's a bitch and a hoe. So Bernie Sanders will, take Donald Trump to task. He's been taking him to task for quite some time. Kamala Harris will take him to task. Cory Booker had a documentary called Street Fight. And Tulsi Gabbard, she just, she's got those broad shoulders, and she's, overly serious, like a complete psychopath. Just totally, serious as a heart attack. So I think Tulsi, she did good with Tim Ryan, so I think she stands up for her beliefs pretty good. So I think Tulsi's a fighter, Corey's a fighter, Kamala Harris is a fighter, Pete Buttigieg maybe a little bit, Elizabeth Warren maybe a little bit, but they're, Bernie Sanders is also a fighter. So those would be the 4 fighters out of my top 6: Bernie, Tulsi, Corey, and Kamala. So Elizabeth Warren has a ton of progressive planks that I agree with, but she's, not progressive enough for me. You have a better person in there. You got a rock star. And so when you're running against a rock star, also all these candidates are just copying and pasting off of Bernie Sanders' platform. So they're trying to triangulate. They're trying to just kind of say, well, he's wrong because of this, and my plan is slightly better. So, yeah. Tomorrow we're going to see Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Bill de Blasio, Jay Inslee, Kirsten Gillibrand, Tulsi Gabbard, Michael Bennet, Cory Booker, Andrew Yang, and Julian Castro. So it'll be fascinating to see what craziness these Democrats wrought. What shit is going to come out of their mouth next? God, they're just hateful, and they insult the president, and they hate America, and they hate Israel. They're for open borders, right? They're just for MS-13 to come on in and start raping your kids. That's what these damn Democrats, they just don't give a shit. They're all moderates, my God. Anyways, so, yeah, that's sarcasm for those who didn't understand. And, yeah, so just because Trump believes one thing doesn't mean they believe the opposite. In fact, when it comes to being a capitalist, Elizabeth Warren is a capitalist, right? Proud capitalist, just like Donald Trump loves capitalism, probably would attack Venezuela because they're, socialists, so she just loves capitalism so much. And then John Hickenlooper just loves capitalism. Michael Bennet says Israel's the one indispensable nation. So Michael Bennet loves Israel as much as Donald Trump does. And so does Amy Klobuchar. And then, what was the other stuff I was talking about? So when it comes to being like Donald Trump, right, I mean, Joe Biden, he's never, met a progressive idea he's ever liked. He's for all the wars. So, Jesus Christ, when it comes to, you don't have to be the opposite. In fact, when you want them to be the opposite of Donald Trump, they're not, right? You want them to be the opposite. And, they're like, well, maybe war against everybody is just fun and dandy. Open borders, I'm not, this should be for border security, so I'm not against, the parameters of the debate essentially is you want security and you want to make sure you're taking care of the humanitarian crisis too, so you got to have, brain and a heart, just like I've been saying for decades. Alright, so that's my pregame little commentary before the debate. This is what I was thinking, so, yeah. Okay.